Hi, welcome. My name is Becky Levin, and I'm going to be moderating tonight's event on behalf of the Steering Committee of Northside Democracy for America, or NDFA. NDFA is a grassroots political organization that's dedicated to electing socially progressive, fiscally responsible, ethically committed Democrats to all levels of government. We'd love for you to like us or follow us on Facebook. Also, at the bottom of your screen and in the Facebook comments, you'll see a virtual tip jar at the beginning and end of this event so that you can support us with the cost to hold events like this. I'd like to thank my fellow steering committee members, EJ, Kevin, Mary Claire, Mary, Melissa, and Ray, and especially Joe Federico, who is behind the scenes, making sure that everything runs properly this evening. So we're excited to be hosting the second of our two candidate forums for the newly created role of Police District Council this evening. Last year, the city passed the Empowering Communities for Public Safety, or ECPS ordinance. It's the first of its kind in the nation for civilian oversight of police. It creates really two tiers of oversight structure. One is a citywide community commission for public safety and accountability. And the other structure is police district councils. Those police district councils serve as the connection between local residents and police. They really are a conduit for community voice. And the police district councils will also nominate the citywide commission. There are 22 police districts in the city of Chicago, and in each police district there will be 3 people elected to the police district council. So that's 66 new elected officials joining government this spring. It's really great for democracy. We're very excited about that, but we also need to make sure that voters are aware of even the existence of the police district council, and that they're voting for candidates who are committed to accountability and transparency. So that's why we're hosting this forum this evening, so that voters can learn more about the Police District Council and hear from candidates. So we're hearing from 11 candidates across 3 different far north side police districts this evening. All of the candidates filled out a brief questionnaire to make sure that they're aligned with those values of socially progressive, fiscally responsible, and ethically committed. Each candidate is going to have 10 minutes to speak this evening. They'll give a 2-minute introduction. Then we'll have 7 minutes of question and answer, and they'll have a minute to close. I'm going to be really tight with the time. So if a candidate doesn't get a chance to finish an answer, don't hold it against them. Treat them with grace. I've been in the seat where they are, and it is a tough thing to do, to convey everything you want to convey in only 10 minutes. Also, we really encourage you to submit questions yourself through Facebook. So I'll be taking some of those questions, as well as some questions that have been submitted in advance and some questions that I prepared myself. I will, if you're submitting questions on Facebook, I may take the liberty of consolidating or streamlining some of them. And for those of you who are NDFA voting members, in the next several days, you will be getting an electronic ballot that will allow you to vote on endorsement of candidates following this forum and the one that we held 2 days ago. And so without further ado, we're going to get started with our first candidate. First up, we're going to be covering the 20th district. The 20th district, all of these districts are on the far north side. The 20th district runs from Lawrence up to Peterson and roughly from the lake to the river. There are 5 candidates who filed to run in the 20th district, and we're going to hear from 3 of them tonight. And the first up is Anna Rubin. Hi, Anna. You have 2 minutes to introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Becky, and thank you, Northside DFA, for having me be a part of your forum. My name is Anna Rubin. I use she, her pronouns, and I am running for 20th Police District Council. I live in Andersonville and have lived there for the past 6 years. I've been in Chicago for 7. And what brought me to run for this role is I organize with the Jewish Council on Urban Affairs, and JCUA was for years and years part of the GAPA coalition and then the ECPS coalition. the coalitions that passed the ordinance that ultimately created these police district councils. And so I was able to kind of be a part of an organization that was central to that fight for many years, was part of some of the community conversations, some of the actions, some of the efforts that led to these positions being created. And so I feel very invested in seeing them succeed and seeing our being a representative of our communities on these district councils, really listening to our communities when it comes to issues of public safety and policing in our districts, and being able to bring solutions and issues around public safety and policing forward to the commission, to the police board, to the city council, the mayor's office, and those agencies that are able to address our issues and concerns.
Great, thank you. Are there any particular populations or organizations that you plan to prioritize when it comes to community voice?
Great question. So I think that, our 20th district is the tagline for the slate that I'm a part of with Deirdre O'Connor and Darrell Dakers. I think we take it very seriously to listen to everyone's voice across the district. And right there, we know that there are communities that are impacted more by violence and by police violence in our communities, right? And so we see that folks of color, that trans folks, that people that have any identities that are seen as not normative or marginalized often in our communities are often also more heavily impacted by violence, police violence, and police misconduct. And so wanting to prioritize those solutions when it comes, or those voices when it comes to seeking solutions around issues of safety, violence, and police misconduct or violence in our communities.
Thank you. Are there additional formal responsibilities or powers that you think should be added to the district council's role?
That's really interesting. So I guess I'll just say very quickly, right? I think the most formal responsibilities at the moment are ensuring that the three folks who are representing a given district have a community forum, conversation, listening session, education session of some variety every month, as well as attending the regular district council, citywide district council meetings. I think I'm not sure necessarily about adding more formal responsibilities. I see my responsibility in a district council seat as, in between those meetings and throughout the time I would hold this office, continuing to knock on doors and talk with residents who aren't necessarily able to or available to or interested in showing up to those monthly meetings, continuing to show up at ward-based events or other community events, and making myself available, hopefully as a resource or a conduit for talking about issues of public safety and policing in the district, continuing to make yourself available at community events and spaces. And right, I think the powers of the commission, right? We as district council folks will be nominating the 7-person commission that has a tremendous amount of power, but I think could initially had more powers around how the police superintendent is chosen or around setting policies for the Chicago Police Department. I am not sure necessarily those need to be district council powers, or if there's some powers of the commission that could eventually be district council powers. But I do think it would be interesting for the commission to have maybe some more of those powers, and potentially shifting responsibilities between the commission and the district council over time.
Great, thank you. Are there specific policy changes that you would like to advance through the district council?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to be really curious to see what kind of power the district council has, or what kind of voice the district council members have in furthering policy changes. I think right there are several policies that are being organized around at the city level at the moment. There is the Stop Shot Spotter campaign. There is the Erase the Gang Database campaign. There's the Treatment Not Trauma campaign. I feel like I probably don't have time to go into what each of these are, but one is seeking to, or kind of two of them, I guess, are seeking to end surveillance practices, discriminatory surveillance practices, and general surveillance practices that lead to criminalization, particularly for folks of color, and particularly on the South and West sides. And then one of them is a co-responder kind of model, or a way in which there would be mental health practitioners that are able to respond in moments of crisis in our community, as opposed to police. So shifting away from a co-responder model to a direct response model is my understanding, at least. And those are the kinds of policies I hope we would be able to support as district council. But again, I'm not sure how much. I'm interested to see how much we are able to further those policies as district council members formally.
Great, thank you. What does community safety mean to you?
Oh gosh, so many things. And I actually love asking this question on the doors, or when I'm meeting folks in the district. I love asking this question and hearing how they respond, and kind of shifting and formulating my own sense of this question from over time. Community safety to me means knowing that everyone in my community, right, not just myself, but everyone in my community, no matter their identities, no matter where they come from, no matter where they're going, can feel safe and be safe, walking, driving, holding space, being in different buildings or parts of the community, and not have to worry that they will be harmed or questioned or treated poorly or differently or harmfully by those around them. Community safety to me means that we're able to walk down our streets safely, no matter the time of day or no matter where we live, and feel comfortable doing so, and be able to know and trust our neighbors and know and trust our community enough to be able to do that.
Great, thank you. And 1 minute to close.
Great. Well, again, thank you so much for hosting this forum and for inviting me and my slate mates Deirdre and Darrell and everyone who's running across the districts to be part of it. I'm really excited for these new positions. I think it could be revolutionary for the city of Chicago. I think these offices could really bring community voice when it comes to issues of public safety and policing to those in power who are able to make real changes for the city. Chicago is trying this out. I hope it goes well. I hope it can be a model for other cities, but mostly I just hope that we are able to work together as a community and across the city as a community to make our city one where we can all feel safe.
Great. Thank you so much, Anna. I think we all share the sentiment that we hope that this goes well. So really appreciate you being here with us this evening. And next up is Joshua D'Antonio, who's also running in the 20th District. Hi, Josh.
Hi, everyone.
So you have 2 minutes to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So like they said, my name is Josh D'Antonio. I'm running for Police District Counselor in the 20th Police District, and I'm so excited to be here. Thanks, y'all, for having me. I look forward to your questions. My name is Josh. I use they, them pronouns, and I live in the 20th Police District on the border of Andersonville and Uptown. I've been a community organizer for half a decade. I got my start with the Chicago Alliance Against Racist and Political Oppression, fighting for full community control of the police, fighting for CPAC. And then once the ECPS coalition was formed, we transitioned, and I fought to get ECPS passed. And I'm so glad that we won that fight. What I want to do as district councilor, and the real reason why I'm running, is because I want to fight for more for myself and for our community. As district councilor, I'm going to fight for more democratic control over the police. Like I said, I'm so excited we want ECPS. We want our voice. We want a seat at the table, but we need more. We as a community deserve to own that table and decide who sits with us. And that's how we should approach public safety. I'm going to fight for restorative justice as well. There's a lot of pilot programs across the city. Tons of stuff's already being done. We need to fully fund those programs, and we need to fully make sure that everyone in my district and across Chicago knows what restorative justice is. I talked to so many people at the doors, ask me, what's this restorative justice about? And then they're all on board with it. People are doing the work right now, and we have to give them the tools that they need to expand that work. And then I want to fight for reducing the interactions between our neighbors and the police. Men with guns don't need to respond to everything from noise complaints to, calls for mental health and interactions with our houseless neighbors. We need to reduce those interactions, empower the community to put public safety in our hands, and ensure that truly everyone is safe. And so that's why I'm here. That's why I'm fighting for to be on this district council. And I promise that I'm going to be doing those things for the next 4 years, win or lose. And I really look forward to all of your questions. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So I happen to be a restorative justice practitioner, but for those who are watching who maybe aren't as familiar with restorative justice, can you describe what that is and how you'll bring that to the police district council?
Absolutely. So I think broadly, it's a means of centering reconciliation and centering the victims in their healing process, and then also centering, bringing, whoever perpetrates harm, I'm not going to say crime because that's a political term, harm, interpersonal or communal harm, whoever commits that, giving them the supports that they need to help them, bring them back to the community, bring them back to those solid connections that is proven to reduce people harming other people. The way I intend to do that is the way I approach everything. Like I said, I got my start as a community organizer. So I know the power of getting everyone, stakeholders, into the same room and saying, okay, we're going to push in the same direction. Let's decide what direction that is. And then doing it and then going out and doing the work. So myself and folks on my team have been meeting with people in the district who are already doing that work and talking about how we can, help them, whether it's a lot of this is funding, to be honest. So sometimes it's that fundraisers, and sometimes it's, like I said, just getting the word out that this exists and we can do this. And also it's safe. Don't be scared of it, because everything's about policing right now. So we can focus on these other alternatives and explain what those really are. I think people are really open to that.
Thanks. What approaches do you plan to use to be a conduit of community voice and to facilitate communication between community members and police?
Absolutely. So I think the monthly meetings that we're going to plan for as part of being a district council are going to be perfect for that. One thing that I think we really need to do is continuing education about what ECPS is and why it's important. About almost every person at the doors that we've knocked hasn't heard of what ECPS is. They don't know that they have a voice right now. And I think even after, I get elected and before we start those meetings and everything, we have to keep knocking on doors, keep making those announcements, keep sending emails, keep making sure that folks know that they now have a voice. And they've always had a voice, but now we have a formal way of expressing that voice. And so community outreach, honestly, is my bread and butter. And that is what I'm most excited about, is continuing that process moving forward.
What does community safety mean to you?
That's a great question. So I did not grow up in Chicago. I grew up in the suburbs of Virginia, right? A little bit far away from here. And in the neighborhood I grew up in, I didn't see a lot of police, to be honest with you. Just wasn't a formal fixture of my neighborhood and everything like that. When I got older, I got my start in nonprofits, and I worked at an organization that was working to end homelessness in the county I lived in at the time. And I started noticing every one of the folks who came in for our services, they all had these like horror stories about they were arrested, they were beat by the police, and all this kind of stuff. It started to click for me, and I realized that we weren't safe growing up in my neighborhood because of a heavy police presence. We were safe because our needs were met. I had a great school. I could walk to school. I walked to school my whole life. We were safe because it was safe to walk on the streets. Our needs were met, and the needs of our neighbors were all met. And that's what community safety is for me. It's my needs are met, your needs are met, our neighbors' needs are met, and we're doing active work to meet those needs. And that's what it is. It's that simple. And that's what we need to do in not just the 20th district, but every district across Chicago.
Thank you. What kind of information or data would you want to receive from the district commander to allow you to carry out your role?
Excellent. So first off, I want to know how many 911 calls are going unresponded to. I just realized I just heard of a statistic recently that's 406,000 911 calls went unresponded to last year, which is telling me that, my questions then are like, well, what are we doing? What are you doing? So I would want to know kind of what those look like. What are people calling in for most? Because national statistics are that it's over 90% of calls to the police are for non-emergencies or for like nonviolent issues. So I want to see what those actual numbers look like for our community. I also would love to see what kind of numbers they're getting in terms, like what are the demographic information? Where are those calls coming from? Because that tells me, okay, there's needs in these communities. We need to set up our meetings over there. We need to hear more from those folks, our neighbors in that section. If there's a lot of calls coming from a certain area, if there's not a lot of calls coming from other areas, I want to know that too, because I want to know what's the difference, what's happening here that is driving this disparity, and how can we then address that? How can we push to address those? So I think the first thing is going to get some data on where those calls are coming from, who's making those calls, and how can we address their needs in a non-carceral way.
Thank you. And you have 1 minute to close.
Absolutely. Thank you all for having me here. I do really appreciate it. My final words are going to be this. We deserve, as people of Chicago, we deserve so much. And we also deserve a look of what public safety is that does not involve, over police communities, heavily armed folks coming into our neighborhoods and stuff. We deserve a Chicago where everybody's needs are met and our needs are met. And we know that if we need something, we can get it, and we don't have to turn to other ways. So that's what I would say. I'm looking forward to your endorsement, and I'm looking forward to fighting with y'all for a better Chicago. Because like I said, win or lose, these are my goals for the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Josh. Really appreciate you joining us this evening. And the third candidate we're going to hear from in the 20th District is Deirdre O'Connor.
Hi there. My name is Deirdre O'Connor. I use she, her pronouns. I am a lifelong 40th Ward, 20th Police District Chicagoan. I am the daughter of Irish immigrants. My mother worked for the Chicago Public Schools, and my father worked for the Chicago Park District. I have been a precinct captain for the last decade of my life. Just recently, 3 years ago, I got involved with Alder Andre Vasquez's campaign, Neighbors for Andre, and I was able to connect to a bunch of really great organizations through working with Neighbors for Andre. One of those organizations was the People's Lobby. I had the opportunity to do a day long with the People's Lobby, and that was a really exciting time. It really energized me and encouraged me to get more involved in local community efforts across the city. Through the People's Lobby, they connected me to One People's Campaign, and I had the opportunity to meet the folks at One Northside and get to know them better and learn about the work that they had been doing, and part of that was ECPS. So through One People's Campaign, I was encouraged to run for this position, and as somebody who's been out in my community, a precinct captain and somebody who's volunteered for most of my adult life, this felt like a natural transition for me to run for this position. I have a 2-year-old niece. Her name is Kira, and like I said, I grew up in the 20th district and in the 40th ward, and I want her to have the same experience I did growing up as a kid. We got to run around, we got to be outside until the lights came on, and I just want to make sure that we're all working together to have a safer neighborhood for everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, Deirdre. So I'm interested in that comment about, growing up on the ward. How do you think things have changed or haven't? How should things change? What's necessary to get back to that experience for your niece?
Yeah, I think that, I was very fortunate that our neighborhood was a huge melting pot. I grew up in Arcadia Terrace, which is a little niche in the 40th ward that not many folks know about. But growing up, there were a lot of immigrant families. I was from an Irish immigrant family. I have a best friend who's Guatemalan, another best friend who's Mexican, another best friend who was from Iran. So we went to Jameson Elementary, and we like I said, we were able to play outside. We felt safe in our neighborhood, and there was a police presence, but it wasn't nearly like what we see today with the crime overall, right? Like the guns the guns have gotten out of control. And I think that connection, right? Like the neighborhood connection, I think is what we're lacking. I think the pandemic exacerbated it. And I think that it's important for us to really get to talk to our neighbors more and engage more. And I think as we collectively come together as a community, I think it's easier to hold each other accountable. And hopefully that we can see that for the community going forward.
So how do you respond if someone says or posts on social media that, our crime on the North Side is due to lack of police or to, quote unquote, police not being allowed to be police? What's your response to that?
Oh man, social media it's difficult, right? Because obviously when I was growing up, we didn't have Nextdoor and Citizen app and Twitter and all of these avenues in which people can just hop on and kind of polarize a lot of what's happening. I do know that when I'm talking to neighbors at the door, I try not to be dismissive, because if they feel like there isn't a police presence or that, kind of like because we are a safer part of town, we don't have the kind of police presence. I would never want to negate anybody's feelings, but I do also feel like we do have to put things into perspective. There is a shortage of police officers. This is true. They aren't able to hire and train as quickly. So there aren't as many police officers as there should be on the North Side. But I do think that when you're having conversations at the door and you're talking to neighbors, it's easier to explain to them, there's situations in which the police respond to, and Joshua's statistics about 911 calls, I had no idea. So it'd be interesting to see what those look like here in the 20th district. But yeah, I think just having the conversation with folks, and like I try not to engage on social media because I feel like it just becomes a bigger issue. So I enjoy talking to people at their door because I think that it's a more one-on-one experience, or at a community meeting is a good way to kind of center that.
Great, thank you. So the district councils were designed so that each of the three members takes the lead on one of the primary functions. So one person serving as the chair, one person really being that primary connector to the community, and one person serving with 21 other district council representatives on the nominating committee for the citywide commission. Which of those functions most interests you, and how do you plan to carry it out?
I mean, they're all really three great positions. I think when and if I get elected, we might have to fight for the fostering connections for the community. Honestly, I mean, that's where I enjoy it the most is getting out there and talking to the community, and hearing folks' feedback on what's happening and how they feel about public safety. So I just naturally I gravitate to that one, and like I said, we'll see how it pans out in February, but I think that naturally I would gear more towards the fostering connections to the community because I genuinely enjoy talking to neighbors and getting feedback.
Great. And what does community safety mean to you?
I think community safety means coalition, reimagining how we see public safety altogether. Community policing from the community for the community. I know that just recently this week we had an incident in the 20th district where a vehicle that was linked to a few armed robberies throughout the city crashed in the 20th district and in the 40th ward, and 4 people fled into the neighborhood, and it took a neighbor with a Ring camera and the response of the police department and collaboration with the Aldermanic office to really come together as a community. The 4 suspects were apprehended, and I was able to knock last night in that neighborhood and talk to some folks at their doors about kind of this idea of coalition and people coming together to really be the eyes and the ears, right, for everything that's going on, and to really come together to really re-envision how we see public safety. And I think that when we do that, we will make our neighborhood safer, and hopefully we can see that across Chicago and across each police district.
Great. And time for a short answer to one more question. How would you work to further CPD's compliance with the consent decree?
Yeah, I mean, I think the commission right now that is there is absolutely brilliant. Every meeting that I've attended, I'm just wowed by just their skill and ability to be able to problem solve and ask the tough questions and still really be respectful of the police department while being stern and getting the answers that we need. So I really think that having a good, solid commission who is able to work with COPA and the police board and the police department, and hopefully a mayor that will help facilitate that, in a city council that will help facilitate that. I think that's the key.
Great, thank you. And you have a minute to close.
Yeah, I just want to thank you guys so much for giving me this opportunity. I never thought I'd run for public office, so I just thank you so much for allowing me to be here. And I really am looking forward to working with everyone and getting out there and knocking on more doors in 46 and 47 and 48. And if anyone wants to knock or join, you can go to our website and sign up for a shift at www.r20thdistrict.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deirdre. We really appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thanks, Becky.
And now we are going to shift up to the 24th district, which runs from Peterson up to the northern boundary of the city, and again, from the lake to the river. There are 8 candidates who filed to run in the 24th district, and we are going to hear from 5 of them this evening. We're going to start with David Earl Williams.
Hello, you can hear me, right? Everything's good?
Yes. Hi, David.
How are you doing?
Good. You have 2 minutes to introduce yourself.
All right. My name is David Earl Williams III. I'm a U.S. Navy veteran. I'm an author of a literature RPG series called Valor Tale, and I work currently at North Shore Hospital in Skokie doing medical logistics. I ran for actually alderman in the 48th ward in 2019. I ended up getting 17% of the vote. As you see in the back, the CPAC now, CARPA, they had endorsed my campaign over the incumbent at the time, because that was, police accountability and public safety was the things I was a champion for while there was a stalemate with the city council. So people are wondering, why am I running for office, for this particular office? It's something personal for me, because my ex step uncle, he passed away nearly a year ago. He was a CPD officer. He didn't do anything corrupt. That just shows you there's policing can be done right. But he always did believe in accountability. And when it came to his brother, my ex stepfather, he died of cancer a year ago. He was he was a member of the Black Keystone Nation, and he turned his life around. But there was always that social stigma of your past following you, and I want to actually get out there and try to show that people have a second chance. We need to help out people in those situations, especially when it comes to the issues of police brutality that were unchecked for many years, and now there's some process on that, progress, I would say, especially we have to do this in the memory of Michael Brown, for example, or George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, those who were victims of police brutality. But, I personally do believe we need a police force, but we have to do this smartly, because there's going to be a lot of people who say they want to get rid of it. You and I, who are not trained to do this, we can't go out there and stop crimes and carjackings. We do have to work together as a community. And from the doors I've knocked, over 3,000 doors so far within the 24th, this is a general consensus. And, I want to try to bring everyone together to come up with reasonable solutions, especially $82 million that the city does put aside for police misconduct settlements. That shouldn't be happening. The police, they need, insurance liabilities, just like a CPS employee would. My mother's a CPS employee. She works in the lunchroom. And I work at the hospital. I have my own liability insurance. So the CPD should be paying for their own.
Great, thank you. And David, I don't know if you're able to stabilize your camera a bit. It's kind of shaky. First question, are there any particular populations or organizations that you plan to prioritize when it comes to community voice?
Well, I want to work with everyone. I think everyone's voices are important within the 24th Police District. There's a very huge Jewish community here. There's obviously African American, and a very big Muslim community. I'm holding the camera, by the way, if you're wondering why it's shaking. But I think if we can all come together, there's pockets of each part of the district that might be different when it comes to what is public safety, how can we resolve crimes. Some people just want to see the people stop at the stop sign. And some people, for example, there are shootings in the area, and this is something that needs to be resolved.
Thank you. What are your thoughts about current staffing levels at CPD?
Okay. And I hear this a lot, and I feel when it comes to their current budget, this is something that we need to criticize. And again, I'm not one of the defund people. I do believe in reallocation. But if you look at the CPD, for example, they spend $4 million on PR. This is higher than LA. This is higher than New York when they're doing the public relations. And if you're looking for money, for more staff, and probably they should lessen the $4 million for the PR there, though. And actually, at the same time, get out there and get into the community. The CPD officers should, and they're not all bad people again, but there are some you have to hold accountable. But it'll better their image by doing it that way. That's what I personally believe.
Thanks. What approaches do you plan to use to facilitate communication between community members and police?
So, I haven't run for alderman in the 48th ward. I've already got the mass email list. Doing door to door, I love going out there talking to people. Look, if I have to do mailers, if I have to do phone banking, which I'm doing, that's not a problem. I think the most important thing is you have to be out there in the community to actually talk to people, to educate them, as I'm sure many of the other candidates are, about what this ECPS thing is, because a lot of people don't know, and you have to be out there constantly. If you don't want to be out there, then you shouldn't be doing this in the first place, because this is very historic, and it's important that people know that they can have a voice.
So we keep hearing that CPD isn't solving enough crimes and that they need more or better detectives. Can you speak to that?
Well, I could tell you from my experience, my group, the Chicago Missing Persons Guild, we worked with, she's a retired youth division commander. Her name is Patricia Casey. So we did work with them on trying to help lessen the individuals that were coming up missing. And statistically, it was a lot of Black women and trans individuals. And we helped at least, increase the numbers of finding missing loved ones. And again, it comes back to, what's the CPD spending their money on when the budget's being sent to them? You got police officers who are using GoFundMe pages when for these medical bills, yet they're part of a union, and I think there needs to be a little bit deeper investigation to where the money is actually going towards when it comes to that.
Thanks. What does community safety mean to you?
Community safety means to me that regardless who you are, I think most people in general want, a safe area where they're not going to go outside and they have to worry about being shot at, or, a cop who's on a power trip is trying to hassle them. Generally, again, this is what people have told me. For me personally, I mean, who doesn't want peace? I think generally that, if you have a police that work with the people and for the people, I think that matters a lot. I could tell you from experience real quick, as I've been doing this, there have been people who have reached out to me where they have had issues with police misconduct. And there was a gentleman who lives in the senior citizen building very close to me. He's a retired cop and he was a victim of assault. And they had it all documented. The cops came in, but they would not allow him to file a police report. And then he trusted me enough to go out my way to file for him, through COPA as well. And that was taken care of. And just recently in Rogers Park, you had 3 Black movers with the company called Humble Design, I believe it was, where they were just moving furniture. And these cops stopped them, and they said they were suspicious looking, but it was all on camera. And then, I filed on behalf of them. And, if you're going to be doing this office, I guess this might answer another question later on, but, you have to have candidates who the people can trust. And again, I'm not elected or anything as of yet, but it seems like people trust me enough to at least help them out, to make sure we keep the cops accountable.
Right. And how do you think mental health or similar crisis calls should be handled in your district? What's the role of police and what's the role of mental health professionals or other clinicians?
Right. Well, from my understanding, there are some people on the cops on the force that do handle those issues, but I personally believe, I think the program is called CARE, and you have 22 personnel, the social workers who are able to handle these issues. And I think more funding for the programs like that, especially from the $82 million, should go towards things to help fund those programs where we can hire more social workers to go out and handle those issues of, mental health, incidents, especially the money like that should definitely be going towards like housing for the homeless and education. So that's what I believe.
Are there additional formal responsibilities or powers that you think the district council should have?
Well, as of right now, I like the ideal that we can actually help select the next superintendent, and I definitely would be happy to do that because, the current superintendent, he seems to be very much in love with allowing members of the Proud Boys to go storm the Capitol on January 6th. And, I don't care what your political views are. If you loot, you riot. If you go storm our nation's capital, you shouldn't have a job. You shouldn't be in public service or working in the public sector, and you definitely should be going to jail for doing those things. So that is the only thing I can think of at the moment.
Great, thank you so much, and you have 1 minute to close.
Okay. So I have pretty much started in the middle of July this office, and I've talked to again, over 3,000 something people. If I'm elected to the district council, I'm going to be your voice. I'm going to fight for you. If anyone else on the council doesn't want to, or they're timid about, the issues of holding the cops accountable, I'm brave enough to do it. I've got a big mouth. I've been in the U.S. Navy. I've got time management. I've managed over $2 billion worth of aviation equipment. I'm not here to make millions of dollars because we're only getting paid $500 a month and 20 hours, a month to do this. But I will go out my way, as I've already proven, to make sure that, there's true representation. And hey, I'm enjoying every single moment of this.
Great. Thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
David.
Thank you.
And next up, we have Cynthia McFadden. also in
Hello.
the 24th District. Hi, Cynthia. You have 2 minutes for an introduction.
My name is Cynthia McFadden, Cynthia Brooks McFadden. I have been in Rogers Park since 1972. I have seen the 24th District Police Ward change for good and for bad. I started the first block club in 1993 on Juneway in the first precinct, where we had community crime watch, and we cleaned up Juneway. And I'm very proud because Juneway is still clean. I lived on that street when I had my babies. A miraculous change. I want to be the voice for the people because I am the people. You see my skin color. I have experienced all type of things with the Chicago Police Department. Unlike the other two candidates, I didn't live in a neighborhood where there was little police enforced and we got along. I grew up 1746 West Juneway. Okay, I've seen all kind of stuff happen in that area, and I think that gives me the voice. I could be the voice for the people. Some of the people that I grew up with are still there, and I'm a 30-year social justice activist. I have a degree in political science and sociology. I have ran for office twice. I have a hanging chad in the state of Missouri. I have worked as a voice for the National Federation of the Blind, American Disability Act, and reform of welfare, education, and leadership. I have lobbied from the local level to the federal level. I believe I was born with this disease, with this passion, and this voice for the people, and this empathy. And that's Cynthia. I've been doing this for 30 years. I raised a 32-year-old son with autism, and we have fought in the Disability Society where he's living a good life. I am the voice.
Thank you so much. So can you describe in a little more detail what approaches you would use to facilitate being a conduit of community voice and facilitating communication between community members and police?
Okay, like the other candidates, I pride myself on going out 3-4 hours a day, talking to the community. The most important part of this campaign to me is educating them on this DCPS ordinance, letting them know what's about to take place. I've informed them that I look forward to meeting with them once a month, getting their suggestions, their directions, and their input on what will make our relationship better with the police and the community. People in my race should not be afraid of the police. And a lot of them are, and that causes a lot of problems in itself. So I will have my meetings once a month. I've already went to Rogers Park West Library, I've been to Edgewater Library, and I've been to Rogers Park Library. They have agreed for us to have town hall meetings. I want to work with the other council members if I get in the office on creating Zoom meetings. Davis List would be great to do a call base so they can all be involved and give us their input.
Great. Are there specific policy changes that you would like to advance through the district council?
Well, through talking to the people, they said they want to see the police department carry their own liability insurance. They feel like if they have to pay for their own liability insurance out of their check, then we'll be safer with them on the street. They also want to see them have training every 6 months, updated training. Like David, I worked in the medical field, and I had to go through training every 6 months before I could get on that floor and work with the elderly and the Alzheimer's patients. They wouldn't let me work. I had to do my modules, I had to do my training, I had to be up to date. I want to see the police officers constantly trained on the First Amendment right, the Fifth Amendment right, and the right to obtain a suspect. Because I'm going to do that training in my meeting. I'm going to let the people know what their rights are, how they're supposed to act when they're approached by the police, and what they should do. That's going to be a part of my meeting. I want the people in the community said they want to see them have psychological and emotional evaluations every 6 months. You see what the 911 people are saying? They need psychological and emotional evaluations. I want to see quicker response time in the first precinct. I went over there and talked to the businesses. They said over there at Gateway, it can take the cop 10 minutes to get to them, and they're all parked on Howard Street in Paulina. You guys don't see cops, but I can't drive down Howard Street without seeing cops. And I'm glad to see them because we need to clean it up. You know, I want us to collaborate with the cops, protect them while they protect us.
We had a question from Facebook. What does your shirt say?
Oh, you got a question from Facebook? What does my shirt say? I am a choreographer and a dancer. And I'm known in Illinois for one of the top Illinois soul line dance instructors. So this is a event I did at Richmond Park this year. It says, don't look for partners, just get in line and dance. So it's a dance show. See that? It's a dance
I love
show.
it. Love it.
Yeah.
What's your response when someone says that crime on the north side is because we don't have enough police or because, quote unquote, police aren't being allowed to be police?
Well, crime in the first precinct and the third precinct, we have plenty of police. Like I said, I can't drive without seeing them, undercover cops and in the cars. And I appreciate their presence. I'm not complaining. So I can't get that perspective because I know that they have to be very heavy over there on Howard Street and Paulina Street. So from my eyes, I see cops. You know, I think the money that they get, we need to focus on training and community policing. Like I said, we did that neighborhood watch and we cleaned up Howard Street. We collaborated. We met with the 24th district every other week and we got it done. I think that's what we need to be doing in the community, and that's what we need to use the money for, to help the community police and giving the people a voice in policing, building a collaborative relationship with CPD so people in my culture, everyday working middle class people like me won't be afraid of them. That's what I think.
Absolutely. And what does community safety mean to you?
Community safety means that the community is collaborating with the police. We're working together to keep our community safe. I think that's why the other candidates had such a safe neighborhood, not because of their race, it's because of the community efforts that was put into their community. They looked out for each other, you know? They cared about each other. They worshiped together. They played together. You know, they were all on the same base. So they were able to have a safe community. And if we could collaborate and get community policing over here and get the cops to stop harassing people, they're doing it. And if we say they're not, then we're not telling the truth. Okay? I have seen many African Americans get beat down on Paulina in Juneway and Marshville in the 70s and the 80s. If we could get that to stop, where we can work together as a team to keep our streets safe, the community and the police department, then that would look like community safety to me.
Thank you. And you have 1 minute to close.
I just want to thank everyone that's supporting me. I want to thank you all for this platform and this forum. I want to thank the ECPS committee and the commissioners for doing a wonderful job. Like she said, they are asking the hard questions. I have been at the meetings. I want to thank them for their work. And I look forward to being a voice for the people and getting police accountability and oversight in a harmonious way in Chicago so we can make our streets safe.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us this evening.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Next up, Marilyn Pagan Banks. Hi.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening. You have 2 minutes for an introduction.
Well, thank you, Becky. Hi, I'm Marilyn Fagan Banks, and I live in the 24th District in the 49th Ward, north of Howard in Chicago, Rogers Park. I've lived here for almost 20 years. I've actually worked here since 1999, 20 of those years of work as director of A Just Harvest. I just had my 20th anniversary. I'm here as a mom. I'm here as a grandmother. I'm here as someone who has lost family members to gun violence. I'm here as someone who has experienced police violence and has had children experience police violence. I'm here as a minister in the community who has stood witness with my community members to things in the community, both holding themselves accountable, but also holding the police accountable, and trying to find ways to not only survive in these days, but to thrive and to be able to expand on the gifts that are present. There are lots of gifts within the community, and I'm excited about this opportunity to stir those gifts up and to bring the not just concerns, but the idea and the creativity of the people to the table. That's who I am.
Great, thank you. Are there particular populations or organizations that you plan to prioritize when it comes to community voice?
We definitely will be prioritizing the Black community, definitely prioritizing those who are feeling isolated and alone, so the senior community, and definitely want to center those who have felt like they don't belong, right? So really creating space for those who have been marginalized, disinvested in, those who are unhoused right now in the community. You know, I often like to remind the business community when we're worried about folks loitering or you know, maybe scaring away new patrons to their businesses, but the people here are the ones that are keeping our businesses open. I see those who go into the businesses and spend their money and their resources. So we need to center those we see out on the block.
Thank you. How would you work to further CPD's compliance with the consent decree?
Well, first of all, I would work with organizations that are doing that work, like Network 49 and others. One of our slate members helped to write the decree. So really just beginning to look at it, to know it, to answer questions, to ask questions about it, and to make sure that we are bringing the voice of the people to the commission so that the commission is indeed making sure everything is being worked out the way it's supposed to be with the consent decree.
Great. What kind of information or data would you want to receive from the district commander to help you carry out your role?
Like some folks already said, more information about what's actually happening in the community. What are the responses? What's the response rate? But really like getting at what are some of the biggest concerns that are out there, because I think people pay attention to the bigger picture or to the, you know, to the scariest thing that's happened, but sometimes there are other things that are occurring that need attention. And so if we can begin to sort of minimize the fear and really have folks more informed about what's happening in the community, so we can begin to make informed decisions and not decisions out of fear. So what's really happening? Let's tell the truth.
The district councils were designed so that each of the three people takes the lead on one primary function, that there's a chair, someone who's the primary connector to community, and someone who helps with nominating the citywide commission members. Which role or which function most interests you, and how do you plan to carry it out?
I'd be happy to be in any of those functions. I think that, you know, you may know this, but we're running as a slate. And so we are three people with different gifts, different levels of experience, different connections in the community. So I think we're always going to be working in tandem and having conversations with each other so that we're bringing the voice, the broader voice together. And so I would like to see what comes up generatively from the community. What is the community calling from Maryland, right? What does the community say they need me to do? Or what's the role they see me being most effective in?
Do you have a plan for any specific approaches that you want to use to elevate community voice and facilitate communication between community members and police?
So we're definitely going to be having monthly town hall meetings, gatherings that will bring the community together, but then also some smaller. That's the great thing about operating as a slate. We live in different parts of the district. So we've got Westridge, Rogers Park, but on one side of the gang line, and Rogers Park on the other side of the gang line, and that was very intentional as well. And so having those bigger meetings, but also making sure we're having smaller conversations so that the different voices are being heard, and then trying to figure out how do we bring those voices together, right? What are the ways we can cross all kinds of lines, not just gang lines, but racial lines or language lines or any kinds of things that keep us from being able to communicate, bringing us together. We'll continue to knock on doors. We already function in organizing. All three of us are involved in different parts of organizing around the ward. And so we'll continue with that work because that's going to be so important to hear the voices of the people. Because again, we are the conduit. We're the ones sort of stirring up things, but the voice of the people, the ideas, the questions, and the concerns are going to come from the people.
What does community safety mean to you?
Oh, community safety for me means all of our neighbors knowing each other as neighbor. And it's not just about not being afraid, but it's about knowing you have what you need, right? So if you are hungry or you just lost a job or you need to run to the emergency room, you have such a relationship. We have such a relationship that we feel safe enough to be able to talk to one another and lean on one another. And when things go wrong and there's harm, that we're willing to hold one another accountable. This isn't about punishment because we see with our criminal justice system that doesn't work, but about accountability, healing, and making sure that the harm is repaired and doesn't happen again. I think we've done a great job talking about resiliency and building resiliency, but we have to make sure we are making sure we're interrupting harm before it even begins. I am also a circle keeper, restorative justice practitioner, pretty new to it, but I use it in everything I do, even in staff meetings, how I run church, everything, because I think the idea of being in circle and hearing everyone and making space where everyone has opportunity to be heard if they so choose is healing. That's what makes us safe.
And we have time for a quick answer to one last question. Are there specific policy changes that you would like to advance through the district council?
Again, some of the things that have already been said, but definitely making sure that we are putting resources into the parts of keeping our community safe and protected that do not require more police presence, right? But that there be a place where people can be cared for and there's opportunity for healing. And so that starts with getting rid of a gang database, and it starts with creating systems that are really about transformation and caring for one another. And that's systems of tracking, profiling, and again, punishment.
Thank you. And you have a minute to close.
Somebody told me recently that I love pretty hard, right? And so I've been in this really weird space of grieving, but also in the space of hope. There is a lot that's happened in the community, especially during these COVID times. And I just feel like this is the time for us to relearn what it means to be community. And this is the moment for all of us who say that we want to be safe to really begin to understand what it means to be neighbor. So let's do this thing. Let's do this thing. I appreciate your support. I don't have all the answers, but I'm certainly here to listen and to bring resources to the community, to bring your vision and ideas of safety and well-being to life. We have all the answers we need. We need the resources, and that's what I'm invested in bringing.
Great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next up, we'll hear from Veronica Ariola. Hi, Veronica. Hi. You have 2 minutes to open.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me on, as well as Marilyn. And we are running as a slate with Evite Jones. And I'm I've lived in the West Rogers Park area for almost 20 years. And I come to this race as a mother and an educator. I've worked at UIC for almost 25 years. And the reason why I'm doing this is because through those different experiences and living in this area and living in Chicago for my entire adult life is that I have seen what happens, the ramifications of over-investing in policing and under-investing in community. And being able to, and I see this position as being able to have productive conversations so we can have some innovative ideas on how to rebalance our the resources in the communities to match what we say are our priorities and our values. The district councils are in such an innovative thing. We are Chicago has taken a huge gamble on democracy, and we have to do this right in this first round, in order for it to succeed. And I think it's imperative in order to elect people who are going to do the work of the district councils in the spirit of the ordinance. And in order for it to succeed and grow, not just in Chicago, but across this country, so that we can really have the people's voice in what it means to have public safety.
Thank you. So you mentioned that we need to have productive conversations to rebalance resources. I think we've all been part of lots of unproductive conversations. So how do you make those conversations productive? What does that look like for the district council to facilitate that?
What it means is that being able to create a space, create events and that are opening and welcoming and allow people to be vulnerable, and also for people to be able to be wrong, to be able to voice their ideas, their feelings, and then meet that with facts and data, and be able to be gently to correct any things that may be incorrect. There's a lot of things that are flying around social media, different apps, and assumptions. And I think I saw this, I think I heard this. And I want our meetings to be productive, being able to address those things, whether they're myths or miscommunications, with facts in order to reduce the fear and suspicion of our neighbors.
Great. So, you mentioned the need for facts. Is there particular data or information that you would want to receive from the district commander to help with carrying out that role?
Absolutely. As I said, there's just so many things that are going on in terms of social media, Nextdoor, and other apps where people say, I saw this and this is what happened. Well, I'd love to be able to be a trusted source of information from the police, be able to say, this is what happened, not just reading their press releases that a lot of spaces do, but be able to have good conversations with the officers at the district office, being able to figure out what exactly happened and being able to convey that information.
Are there particular organizations or populations that you plan to prioritize when it comes to community voice?
Absolutely. I think that what is missing in the conversation of public safety is valuing the voice of the critics. And this is where the ordinance comes from. Are people who have said that the way we do public safety and policing in Chicago is not right, and this is how we need to move about it. So to elevate those voices, and most of those voices are about holding police accountable for when they harm our neighbors. It is not about disbanding the police department. It is about holding people accountable for their actions, which is the same thing that the police purport to say they want to do with people um, who break rules and laws in our community. So to be able to have that even playing ground and have that conversation.
Thank you. So you started out by noting that you're an educator and a parent. One thing I'm really interested in is how are we going to bring youth voice to the district councils?
Oh, we have to engage them immediately. And we do have some young people who are on who are volunteering, and we're out there collecting a lot of our petition signatures. You know, we turned in like over 1,500 signatures, and they're engaged. They're excited. And some of them are coming home from college, as my daughter is tonight, and I'm sure that they'll be as engaged as they can from wherever they are. And we definitely want to have a youth board, advisory board, or a youth seat on our advisory board. But you know, when I talk to parents around the district, I hear almost an equal volume, parents who are worried about especially their young Black and Brown sons, about walking around the neighborhood, and half of them are worried about police harassment, and the other half are worried about the violence that we hear about on the evening news and read about in the paper. So people are worried about their youth, the young people, and we want to bring them to the table and help us figure out what we can do to make the community safer for them.
Thank you. What does community safety mean to you?
Community safety means having a community where I can walk around, my daughter can walk around, her friends can walk around, and not and just be able to be relaxed and be able to have fun, and be able to not see people who have to live in parks because they cannot afford. The city has, and the system has failed them in terms of being able to have them have a stable job and home. Um, Safety means being able to cross streets when the walkway says you're supposed to walk, and the cars actually adhere to that. There is a breakdown in societal trust, and our relationships to each other that we need to work on, that adds to that public safety. So it's not just about crime and violence, it's about building strong structures so we can flourish as people.
Are there additional formal responsibilities or powers that you think the district councils should have?
So the district councils, this is their first time doing this. And so we're going to definitely push and see what our powers really can entail, and are based on our responsibilities. And our biggest responsibility will actually be nominating the people on the citywide commission. I really tip my hat to the commission right now. They're doing an amazing job holding the police accountable and trying to get them to adhere to the decree and pushing them to talk about public goals. I was just at the last meeting, and the police department just sent a letter with like 3 goals, where COPA and the police board sent people to talk at length about their goals. So being able to be the voice that would bring that information back from the commission to the community and add information from the community up to the commission is really powerful for me.
Great. And how do you think crisis calls should be handled in your district? What's the role of police, and what's the role of mental health professionals or other clinicians?
I think that we ask the police to do too many things that are not about policing, and that includes mental health calls. So we need to expand spaces where we have a public mental health professionals, either with the police when they go to calls, as they do in Skokie, or have them be a different kind of a call. We have seen across this country too many times when mental health calls have turned violent and people have died because police are just not trained to to handle those sorts of situations. Social workers and mental health professionals are. They know how to de-escalate without much harm or without somebody losing their life.
Thank you so much. And now 1 minute to close.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and Marilyn. And we're really looking forward to working together with Evite, as well as with the elected officials in the area, many of whom have already endorsed us as a slate, to really amplify and center the community and its voices and its needs and its concerns, and also all of our ideas. As I said, this is an innovative space, the district councils, and as someone who has built many different structures along the way, around my life, to amplify and support minoritized people, I see this as just as another step in that journey of building a structure that is going to last for a long time and really serve the community. So please do check us out on our website, uniting24.com, or we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Uniting24. Please join us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veronica. We appreciate you joining us this evening. And next up is Evite Jones, also from the 24th District. Hi, welcome. You have 2 minutes to open.
Hello, everyone. My name is Evite Jones. I'm a longtime resident of Rogers Park. I'm a professional photographer and writer, but I'm also an activist of 30 years. I've worked with many organizations and also with GAPA, with one organization to help draft the original ECPS ordinance. I am running for this office because it's a long time coming. A long time coming for our taxpayers, our residents, to actually have a voice and actually know where your money is spent, how it's spent, and how your neighborhood is protected. We should have a voice in that.
Thank you. So what approaches do you plan to use to facilitate raising that community voice and facilitating communication between community members and police?
Well, first is a series where we definitely we'll be having town hall meetings to definitely hear the voice of the people. But also we've reaching out emails and anything else in other organizations that we work with. I work with organizations such as Circles and Ciphers, is a youth organization where we teach young men and women of color how to be leaders and how to actually run their own organizations. So, but we're definitely working with. We have so many other organizations. It's not just us. It's all of us, and we're definitely looking to work with the whole community on this, and definitely reaching out to the community.
Great. What does community safety mean to you?
Wow. Community safety meaning I know who my neighbor is. My neighbors know who I am. We look out for each other. We do not always need police intervention to solve our problems that's in our neighborhood. And definitely having a voice in how our community is ran. It takes a village, and that is so true. And in this instance, it takes a village. So it's definitely going to take this whole district to help to help with safety. And so we know what we need to be the face of what public safety looks like, and we can't do that without the community.
Great. How do you respond when someone says that crime on the north side is due to lack of police or to, quote unquote, police not being allowed to be police?
So I mean, what do they mean by being allowed to be police? What we've seen by what being allowed to be police is profiling, misjudgments, and many other things. That's what we know that to be. Crime, like I said, that's a neighborhood thing, and the neighborhood getting to know each other, getting to know the youth in the neighborhood, interacting with the youth, all these things can prevent those things. There's so many preventions that's there. So the question should be asked is, how do we prevent this, and how can we all come together to prevent the crime? And how can we definitely, how we can be a part of it, and how can we don't have to rely on the police for so much. Let's rely on the community to take care of community with the help of the police.
Thank you. Are there specific policy changes you would like to advance through the district council?
Definitely trauma center or trauma agents, when definitely to look into situations that's a mental, if it's a mental situation, I and a whole bunch of people believe that the police do not always have to be called. It's good to have them on standby, but a medical professional who is trained to interact with those individuals should be deployed with them. And I've heard of, I know that Skokie has one, that they do that, and we should also implement something like that as well. We have the funds, and I really believe we have the funds, and we can get that done.
And how would you work to further CPD's compliance with the consent decree?
Well, at this point, we just have to we have to hold them accountable. We have to call them out. We have to bring it to the people. This is what the people need to know, because a lot of people do not know about things like the consent decree. There's so many things, so many things that the community do not know about when it comes to policing. And I think that this is what the city wants. So we're trying to get through this red tape. We're trying to get, the community needs to be informed as much as possible, so we'll know what these things are and what they're up, what they're up against, what they mean, and what do it mean to their community.
So the district councils were designed so that each of the 3 members takes the lead on one primary function. That there will be a chair, someone who's the primary connection to community, and someone who serves on that as the nominating committee for the citywide commission. Which role most interests you, and how do you plan to carry it out?
Well, me and my statement, we all have been community leaders. So honestly, to tell you the truth, whatever position that I'm given, when me and my slate, we will make it work. It does not matter what position that I'm in, because I played every single one of them. And so my thing is, based on no matter what position I'm in, I'm willing and ready to, just get this done for our community and work with my slate.
What are your thoughts about staffing levels at CPD right now?
Well, on staffing levels. Well, this is something. Well, there's another thing that I said that the community do not know about. The community should know about. The staffing levels there. It needs to be talked about. Needs to be looked into. There's so much that that the bureaucracy and so many people and components that that gets in the way of what we're trying to build with the community. So it's definitely something. The staffing level definitely something needs to be looked at. This is a question that I can go on and on about, but I don't have as much time to go to talk about it. So this is definitely an ongoing question that will be taken care of and answered.
Thank you. Are there additional formal responsibilities or powers that you think district councils should have?
Well, right now, I really do think that that we're on the right track, and we'll know in the future, because this is just an incubator. So things that that should be addressed, will be addressed. It's so soon to talk about so many of those things right now, since it's such in the beginning stages. But it's definitely something we'll definitely be looking into.
Are there particular populations or organizations that you plan to prioritize when it comes to community voice?
Yeah, you kind of cut out a bit there when you the question.
And this will just be a short answer. Are there particular populations or organizations that you plan to prioritize when it comes to community voice?
Of course, of course. First, the community voice is a community voice, but the community knows what group have been mostly marginalized, and that's Black youth and Latino youth. Our priority is to basically, bring all these voices together, and that's the goal. But we know to work with those. We know to work with those two marginalized groups. That definitely should have some presence of it. But all voices, will be heard.
Great. And you have 1 minute to close.
Well, thank you, Northside. Thank you so much for having us to introduce us to the public. Me and my slate mates, we have years of experience, not only in help drafting the ordinance, but we have boots on the ground for many years, and this has been a long time coming. And it'd be an honor to serve our community, to let people know what ECPS really is, and we're just looking forward to just bringing our community back together and definitely having our voices heard. So Uniting 24 is definitely the slate that will definitely have the experience to get the job done. We've been doing this for a long time.
Great. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. And now we're going to go over to the 17th district. So the 17th district, we're heading over to the west a little bit. So it goes from Belmont up to the city's northern boundary. The river is roughly the eastern boundary, and it goes over to Cicero. There are 8 candidates who filed to run in the 17th district, and we're going to hear from 3 of them this evening. We're going to start with Beth Rochford, who is not on the Illinois Supreme Court.
Hi, thank you for having me tonight. But my cousin Liz is. So if you see anything that says we're not related, it's not true. We are related. So thank you so much for having me. As she said, my name is Beth Rochford. I am a lifelong resident of the 17th Police District. I do community organizing with One Northside. And like Ed Vitae, I was on the Police Accountability Task Force that helped to write the ECPS ordinance. Community organizing through my church for approximately the last 20 years. I started with affordable housing, and then when Lakeview Action Coalition and ONE joined to make One Northside, I pivoted over to their Violence Prevention Coalition because that was something that I was more passionate about. I'm a nurse by profession. Have been a nurse for 35 years and a nurse practitioner for the last 20. And I see a lot of parallels between healthcare and policing. And in healthcare, we're required to use evidence-based practices and use data to drive our care planning for patients. And I feel like that is something that's definitely needed in the way the police do their work and how their policies are written. So I would like to see that the citywide commission is on board to help make sure that there is evidence supporting what the CPD are doing and that they have data to support what is happening out there. I think that's it for an opening statement.
Great. Thank you so much. So speaking of data, what kind of data would you want to receive from the district commander to help carry out your role with the district council?
So I'd really like to have some more information about what's happening in the community and response times. A lot of people say that we're understaffed and that there is a staff from our area being pulled to other places. But the information that I've gotten in the past is that even though we might have fewer police in our area, the response times to calls is much higher than in other parts of the city where they might have more police, yet the time it takes to get to a call is much greater. So I would really like to have not only information about what's happening in our district, but I would like to know the comparisons of how that is in different places throughout the city.
And what approaches do you plan to use to facilitate communication between community members and police and to be a conduit of community voice?
So I would love to be able to actually go to where the people are. So go to the parks where some of our young people are playing basketball or hanging out. I would love to go meet them, in community gardens or at farmers markets, anywhere that the community is, to really get the voice of people who you may not hear from. I know that there's a lot of input, maybe from homeowners associations, and that's fine. And I would love to hear from those people as well. But I think we have to really look at who are the people in the district who may have not had a voice in the past, and reaching out to them wherever they are. Don't expect them to come to our meetings in our places, but really trying to meet the community where they are.
So how do you respond when someone says that crime on the north side is due to lack of police or police not being allowed to be police?
So I do make them aware that per capita, Chicago has the second highest amount of police, second only to Washington, D.C. And I don't feel like just because, we've got a lot of police on the books, but what are they doing and where are they really? And so I would really like to just let them know, what the data is, and then that that more police don't always make people feel safer. Sometimes they're coming when something has already happened. We need to be about violence prevention and engaging the community so that we can do more to support the community so that things are stopped on the front end rather than being a back end solution.
Are there specific front-end violence prevention strategies you'd want to promote in the 17th district?
So I would love to see more violence interrupters. I definitely think that that's something that started here in Chicago that we have sent all around the country. And it's had actually some, better evidence and better success in other places. But I think that's because we haven't done our due diligence to fund that kind of thing here in the city. A lot of the funding for those programs has come through the state, and if the state government changes, then that funding gets cut. So I would love to see the city actually support that in all of the districts and not just in certain areas.
Thank you. What does community safety mean to you?
So community safety means the community really working together. and knowing our neighbors and being there for each other. I think that, you know, I'm an older person, and I remember back in the day where, you know, if you were causing trouble in the neighborhood, your parents knew about it before you got home because someone was out there looking out for the neighborhood. I would like to have more of that kind of a feeling where we really take care of each other in the neighborhoods, and we get input from the community about what safety means to them. Somebody told me recently they would feel safer if the streets were better lit and the trees were trimmed more regularly. That would make the street brighter and people would be more comfortable being out on the streets. And that's the kind of input that if you hadn't been, or I hadn't been door knocking and reaching out to the community, I wouldn't have thought of that as something that needed to be done and could help people feel safer. So definitely think we need to engage the community and get their input on what safety means to them.
Great. Thank you so much. And you have 1 minute to close.
So I just want to thank you all for having me tonight. I'm honored to have the opportunity to serve as I helped to write this ordinance. I used to say at our meetings, if we pass this crazy thing, I'm going to run for one of those seats. And now I'm honored to have the opportunity to do that. And as we used to close all of our police accountability task force meetings with a whole speech, but at the end we would say, when it's better for all of us, it's better for all of us. That's what I believe, and that's what I want to bring to this position.
Thank you so much, Beth. We really appreciate you joining us this evening. And next up, also in the 17th District, is Anthony Tamez. We're waiting to switch over to Anthony. There he is. Hi, Anthony. You have 2 minutes to open.
Of course. Bujuani Iskrede Yanini Nindijna Kaj Iskagun and Dunba Amiknadudam. Hello, everyone. My name is Anthony Tamez. I'm First Nations Cree, Sichanga, Lakota, and Black, and I live on the north side of Chicago in the Irving Park neighborhood. I just introduced myself in Anishinaabe or Ojibwe, the language that has traditionally been spoken here in the Midwest Territories. I'm so happy to be here today and to be able to speak with you on why I think I'm one of the best candidates for the 17th Police District Council. But to start off a little bit about myself, I started off in 2018 after I graduated high school as an intern for Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa of the 35th Ward for about a year. And then I transitioned over to the 33rd Ward where I was an intern for a couple of months. And then I transitioned to full-time staff where I was the I was a neighborhood services and business services coordinator for Alderman Rosana Rodriguez, where I worked for 3 years and had left in January to go work on some campaigns for Native people across the country. And so, part of the reasons that I'm running is because this is the ECPS ordinance is one of the strongest ordinances in the country that has passed, and I'm running for a couple of things, and that's to bring community involvement into these meetings. We know that the district councilors are going to be the eyes and the ears for the larger city commission, right? And so it's behoove of us to enable and facilitate community voice in policing. And that means ensuring that we have frequent engagement, which are the monthly meetings, and we're facilitating access to data to residents who might not know how to read that or might not know how to access that. Second, bringing in community control of the police. So as district council members, we should be able to empower our community who is policing our neighborhoods.
Great. So you mentioned seeing the district council as the eyes and ears for the citywide commission. Are there particular populations or organizations that you would want to prioritize when it comes to being that conduit for community voice?
Of course. So there are, there are already people on the ground doing the work within the 17th district. We have a slew of wards. So we have the 35th Ward IPO, the 30th Ward IPO, the 50th Ward IPO, the 39th Ward IPO, the 40th Ward IPO. And so those are people who and groups who are already on the ground doing the work, connected with the community. And so as district councils, it's really important that we're working with those groups already, so we are able to get in immediate contact with our neighbors. So we're able to do our jobs and we're able to know what's happening within the 17th district, to make sure that we're able to communicate that properly to the citywide commission.
Thank you. How do you think crisis calls should be handled in your district? What's the role of police? What's the role of mental health professionals or other clinicians? And I think, especially given your experience working in the 33rd Ward, if you could maybe tell us a little bit about treatment, not trauma, and how that might relate to the role of district council.
Yeah, so we know there's data out there, adults or people with mental health who are going through a mental health crisis are 16 times more likely to be harmed by a police officer during one of those calls, right? And so we don't need armed individuals going to mental health crisis calls. Those those are already heightened situations. So we need trained professionals, right? We need someone who has more than 60 credit semester hours to go and respond to a call, to be able to properly identify what an individual is going to, and rather than taking them to a jail cell or holding, taking them to hospitals or mental health clinics where they can get the actual treatment where they that they deserve and that they need.
How would you work to further CPD's compliance with the consent decree?
Of course, so we know that when the Justice Department in 2017 did an overview of the Chicago Police Department, they found that the Chicago Police not only are endangering themselves, but are endangering the lives of Chicagoans, as well as infringing on many of our rights. And so I think one of the main things here is focusing on their training, working with the district commander to see if there are trainings outside of CPD that we can get our officers to go to make sure that our community remains safe and that officers are no longer infringing on the rights of the citizens of the 17th district.
What does community safety mean to you?
I really love this question. When I first got started, I come from the Native community of the city of Chicago, and so I kind of sat around and I asked a lot of my elders, and one of them is married to a Lakota woman, and he was telling me safety is generosity. And just applying those values to being in this office, by keeping everyone safe, I do think that's generosity. I think it's generosity when we reach out to our neighbors and say, hey, what can I do to make sure that you're safe? Because we are offering up our time. We are offering up our emotional labor to each other. Because again, at the end of the day, whether we don't agree on things, we all want the same thing, and that's for our communities to be safe. And so for me, I think safety is generosity. Safety is caring. Safety is, checking on your neighbor when you haven't heard from them in a while.
So I don't think we usually hear someone talking about running for a government role and the word generosity in the same sentence. So I'm wondering, how do you see that playing out in the district council? How can the district council promote and advance and facilitate generosity?
Yeah, when I first started for Alderman Rossano Rodriguez, it was kind of an eye opener, because there are people who are inherently going to interact with the government, who know that they are able to call on their aldermen, or in this case district councils, for certain things. But then there's community members who don't know anything about district councils, who don't know how to facilitate access to government services. And so I think what that means is going out into the community, making sure that people know who their representatives are, and then offering them help. It goes beyond, a 9 to 5 job. Safety is a 24/7 issue. And so we have to make sure that we're offering ourselves up to our community when they need us the most.
And we have time for one more question. The district councils were designed so that each of the 3 members really takes the lead on one primary function. One is a chairperson, one is a primary community connector, and one helps out with nominating folks to the citywide commission. Which of those functions most interests you, and how do you plan to go about it?
Yeah, so I think for myself, it's going to be the community organizing role. You heard from Beth, and you'll hear from Steve right after me. We've been working pretty hand in hand, and we've kind of figured out amongst ourselves like who will take what role. I am definitely the more tech savvy one out of us 3, and so I'm able to gather community very quickly, and working with the IPOs has been something that's been very easy with me. And so making sure that we're getting community out to these meetings, because that's in turn how we're going to be able to do our job. If we don't have people showing up, then we don't have anything that we can go to the community commission, the citywide commission on.
Thank you so much. And you have 1 minute to close.
I just want to thank you all for allowing me to be here. This is a historic moment. We're bringing community's voice into matters of policing and public safety at the core, at the center of that. But it's also a very historic moment for myself and for my community as a Native person running in the city of Chicago. We are activating a group of people, of Native people who haven't historically been involved in government. And so I encourage you to look into my campaign, anthonytemez.com, to see how you can get involved. And I'm really grateful for being here. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Anthony, for taking the time to speak with us. And last but definitely not least, we're going to hear from Steve Spagnuolo. We're excited that Steve can join us. He is actually an NDFA voting member, and I think maybe the only NDFA voting member running for Police District Council. So, Steve, you have 2 minutes to introduce yourself.
Thanks so much, and thanks to everybody for being here today, and really appreciate NDFA putting on this forum. It's so important, especially with a brand new position like this, where not a lot of civic organizations necessarily are thinking about putting on these types of events for district council when they're busy with aldermen and mayoral races. So a little bit about myself. As Becky mentioned, I am actually formerly NDFA steering member, a longtime member of the organization. Actually started going to DFA meetings when I was out in college in New Jersey even. So I've been a DFA member for years. Just a little introduction about myself for those who don't know anything about me or don't know some of my story. When I was 3 years old, I lost my father to gun violence. He was repeatedly shot by armed individuals who were attempting to rob the restaurant that he managed. No one was ever arrested for his murder. And I actually experienced gun violence myself in the 17th District in 2018, in the middle of the day with several colleagues, when we were robbed at gunpoint in the 17th District. That moment could have turned deadly at any point. I thank God that we all were physically unscathed. No one was ever arrested in connection to that robbery. I've only ever received one phone call from detectives about the incident. And for those of you who might remember, that was actually Aaron Goldstein's campaign for Attorney General, and the police leaked it that next day. So we were in the news the next day about getting robbed. For years I've fought for police reform to achieve accountability, best practices in policing, and greater investment in resources that address the root causes of crime in our communities. Now I want to fight for all the residents of the 17th district and for those who travel into the district for work or pleasure. I've lived in the district for over 7 years now with my wife and our son Stevie. I've served our community as a member of the local school council at Albany Park Multicultural Academy, and most recently for the last 4 years at Roosevelt High School. It matters how our communities are policed, and it matters when violent crimes aren't being solved for victims and survivors of crime. We need leadership that will hold police accountable, push back against failed tough on crime talking points, and work to implement impactful crime reduction strategies. I'm running because I have the personal and professional experience to effectuate real and meaningful change regarding public safety in our communities.
So at the beginning of the forum, I gave a little description of NDFA, but I also could have said that NDFA is a group of political nerds. So since Steve is a longtime NDFA member, I'm going to ask him kind of a political nerd question here. So the 17th district includes a really wide range of political leaders from Carlos Rosa to Jim Gardner. So and this question actually comes directly from Joe Federico. How in the heck does the district council find a way to work with all of those different folks?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, we have an opportunity right now to make sure that we don't have to work with some of those folks at least. Look, I love Carlos, but Jim Gardner is a whole different story, right? Look, it's going to be important that we're able to work with everybody that we've got in the district, but some people aren't necessarily going to be willing to work with us, and we just have to be cognizant of that. It's important that we have at least some buy-in from the police, and that we're working with the district commander. That's the most important. That's first and foremost. Luckily, there's not a huge segment of the 45th ward, but it's big enough that I hope we get a new alderman there. The rest of the communities, we do have the 39th ward, which I hope everybody will come out and help Denali Dasgupta beat Sam Nugent, who did not vote for this ordinance. So, just putting that into perspective, right? Like we have individuals within the district that did not support this, and we need to be able to be pushing against that and getting new aldermen in these wards.
Are there specific policy changes that you would like to advance through the district council?
Yeah, look, I think we need to have a frank discussion with the commander about what's happening, what's working, what's not working. I think you asked, I think it was Beth, a question about staffing levels and, how, talking to people about, I don't see any officers, that kind of thing. Look, we need a real honest conversation about where we are with our police. We don't see our police solving crimes, and that's a problem. Is that because we don't have enough police? No, as Beth pointed out, per capita, we have more police than any other major city outside of DC. But we don't have detectives. That is true. We don't have a dedicated homicide bureau. There's a lot of things that we're not doing that other major cities like Los Angeles and New York are doing, or cities like Houston are doing. We also don't have a strategic plan for violence reduction for the entire city. We need something like that. We need that to be written up. We need it to be a policy, and we need it drilled down into the districts as well. So, we just need to take a holistic look at policing, not only in our districts, but in the whole city as a community.
So I think I'm hearing some youth voice in the background there. How would you be a conduit for youth voice? Maybe youth who are a little bit older than your child.
Absolutely. Look, as I mentioned, I served on the local school councils for several years. I think it's incredibly important for us to engage, especially with our high schools and our middle schools. One of the things, actually, I most recently I work for the Lake County State's Attorney's Office. I'm our Chief of Government Relations and External Affairs, so I do a lot of policy, legislative work, and grant work. And one of the things we actually most recently did, we had a deflection and diversion summit. And one of the things we talked about and had a speaker talking about was teen court. They do teen court up in Lake County where they take high school kids. These high school kids will gather and they'll be the judge, the attorneys, the jurors, and they'll come up with a sentence, a non-jail sentence for an offender for a non-violent case, and give them a sentence. So, for instance, they had one where it was a woman, I think a girl might have stole something, so a basic retail theft case, and she wanted to be a beautician. Well, her school was having an event where Mario Trikoshi comes and they do everybody up for prom. So what teen court sentenced her to was to help the guys from Mario Trikoshi in getting everybody ready for prom, and then Mario Trikoshi got her ready for prom. And what they've seen in teen court, which it sounds amazing, is almost 0% recidivism. The people who go through this process do not come through the criminal justice system again. And really, because they're going through teen court, they don't get to the criminal justice system in the first place, which is so important and so impactful. So I would like to replicate that in the district.
Great. And one final question. What does community safety mean to you?
Look, I think community safety, a lot of times crime is perception, and perception can be reality. I think community safety needs to be people feeling like they can leave their doors unlocked again, like they could go outside and hang out on their stoops, that they can have conversations with their neighbors, that they can walk down the street at any hour of the day. That's what community safety looks like to me. Community safety looks like, particularly if crime is still happening, police actually making arrests and not treating people like it's really not their job to do that. So that's community safety for me.
Thank you. And you have 1 minute to close.
Look, I just want to thank everybody again for coming out and for watching this. Really appreciate it. It's so important for people to be educated about what this is and what we're going to be able to do once we're elected. I think, Becky, you might have mentioned it earlier. There's 8 candidates running right now. 3 are challenged, so we'll see. We might have 5, we might have 8, we might have somewhere in the middle of that. What I can tell you is that the 5 that are not the ones that presented today are almost all backed by Fraternal Order of Police or folks that support the FOP. So we've got an opportunity to win this for progressives in the 17th district and throughout the city. And we need to make sure that we're electing good candidates in these districts that are actually going to take this seriously and make this about police accountability and not rubber stamp whatever the police are doing.
Thank you so much, Steve. Really appreciate that. And thank you to all of our candidates this evening. I think Steve really summed it up where we need to be electing good candidates who are going to take this seriously and really have an eye out towards police accountability. So I heard from some great folks tonight, and I will turn it over to Joe just for final comment and sign off.
Indeed. All right. So again, thank you everybody for tuning in here, whether you are doing it live, whether you are doing it as part of the stream once the live feed ends, or if you happen to see it on CAN TV, because thanks to our friends at 99 Perspectives and Hardlines Media, both of these forums will be shown on CAN TV. You can consult their listings for the times. I was a little distracted because I just posted once again the virtual tip jar, which again for NDFA here in Chicago is going to help us to continue to do the work that we are doing. That is important because for those of you that are political nerds, you may have seen the story in Politico that the national Democracy for America organization, the one that started it all, the roots going back to the Howard Dean campaign, they are basically going out of business, and they may have gone out of business as of today. That is the national group. That is not Northside DFA. We are still here. We are going to continue to work. We may be asking around and sort of acting like free agents to potentially affiliate with other groups, but that's something we're going to be exploring. For now, though, we do have our weekly meetings where we talk to aldermanic candidates. For January, we're looking to set up a mayoral forum with the candidates that our members deem most fit our objectives and mission. And if you become a member, coming to meetings, volunteering for endorsed candidates, you get to vote to support more candidates, like the ones that you may be seeing here, because our members will get to vote for who we will endorse for all of these races and all of these candidacies. So it is important. It is exciting. It is democracy with a small d at the grassroots, and it is what we are doing and what we will continue to do. I'm done preaching. Again, thank you so much. Thank you, Daniel. Also, look for Becky and possibly me tomorrow at 6 p.m. on Chicago Corner, which is a show produced by 99 Perspectives and Hard Lens Media, where we'll talk more about all of these races. So again, thank you all so much. Tell your friends. See you in January. Like us on Facebook. Donate to the tip jar. And let's wrap this up so I can make myself a Manhattan. I'm ready.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.